Speed. You know why you need to be fast? Because if you can evade the opponent without ever getting hit, that's what speed helps with. You can knock them out, and they can't knock you out because they can't touch you. That's what speed helps with. And that's why it's vital to increase your speed. Right? Speed is the difference between a knockout and evading a knockout. What speed actually is, right? For those of you who don't know, what is speed? Right? What equals speed is basically reaction time, and then you plus technique efficiency plus neurological firing. Right? That's what speed actually is. It's not necessarily just moving fast, but it's processing fast, if you will. That's what speed actually is. Because I mean, in MMA, you almost never really sprint. So I don't even necessarily like calling it speed. I feel like it's more agility maxing or agile maxing. But nonetheless, we'll use the term speed, right? Because it's a bit more, people will understand it better, right? Believe it or not, right? Reaction time, right? Where does it come from? Funny enough, it comes from actually your brain, right? And your nervous system, right? Your nervous system, right? Not just muscles per se. Relaxation actually is what increases speed more than tension does, right? So, like, you can do this experiment whenever you want, right? Literally flex your arm and try and throw a punch. All right, like you see how slow that is. Now you can just relax your arm, right? You don't flex it until the very end, right? It's a lot faster, right? Just a simple experiment like that, right? And I'm just sitting in my chair, right? If we were standing up, obviously, right? But you could test this out. It's very flex your arm, throw the punch, very slow. Right? It's almost like how an overly roided bodybuilder would probably throw a punch, right? Right? There's a very big difference between that punch and the one before that, right? So relaxation actually increases speed more than tension, right? It's not, you don't want to be tense when you're throwing a punch, right? You want to be relaxed. You want to be agile, right? Like if you watch any of, basically, honestly, someone who really displayed this really well, like the whole relaxation thing, it's Conor McGregor actually, prime Conor McGregor, right? Like if you watch, honestly, just watch his early training videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like that stuff, he was actually really good at this fact. He was like just in a mind state of his end. Right? He would never force a shot, but it's like he was always hitting people, and he would almost never get hit himself. Right? And now you may be asking, is it actually possible to increase speed? Yeah, it actually is. Right? And you can massively increase your speed. Right? Now I do want to mention this because just like in the power maxing video earlier, I mentioned how power is not the end all be all. Same as with speed, right? You need to have good technique, right? I recommend getting good technique before you focus on speed maxing, right? Make sure your technique is at least good, right? Like you're loose and you're relaxed when you punch, right? And you're not like a noob. There's no point of speed maxing if your technique is not on point. Speed is actually, but moving on from that, speed is actually one of the most trainable attributes in MMA, right? It's actually very easy to get fast, right? In fact, I believe even, and Bruce Lee was also really good at this, right? Like, supposedly, right? They say that Bruce Lee was so fast with his kicks that they would have to ask him to slow down because, again, the cameras at that time were not good enough to record because, again, frames per second were only so high back then, right? So he would have to go slower because of that. So, again, and if you know anything about Bruce Lee's training, it was all fast twitch muscle fiber training, really, right? And you can actually build this through faster neural firing, right? When you have, again, when you have clean technique, you have cleaner mechanics, right? And when you have good footwork, right? Again, I don't want to be that guy who's like footwork, right? I don't personally believe you need to do a lot of spazzy stuff. I call it good footwork. Moving alone on itself is not good footwork, right? But that is a side point, right? But having decent footwork at least will help you again, especially when it comes to rotating, right? Like there is a difference between just being able to hit someone and just putting your whole weight into it, right? Because hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing, right? But you see how I'm not fully extended per se, right? I'm just bringing it back. Most of your punches will actually look like that, right? If the focus is speed, right? If it's focused on power, like in the previous video, you will end up having to rotate fully, and it'll take a little bit longer to bring this back, right? But even with that, right, that is something to keep in mind. Two types of different punches, right, or attacks again, right? I just mentioned punches to give you guys an example, right? And it's less about muscle tension, but more about I would recommend some type of explosive training, right? Repetitions until automatic, right? In fact, in fact, believe it or not, I personally am a believer that bands, right? Like the what are they called? Well, you know what I'm talking about. Resistant bands. Right? Resistant bands are like gonna help you actually a lot. Like, there's a guy actually on Instagram. I forgot his name, right? But he actually broke the world record for like the fastest punches or whatever. And literally all he did, right? Literally in every video, he would have the resistant bands just attached to him. I think that's like if you get used to just having that on you and just like training with that, I think for a good part, you'll probably increase your speed a lot. Right? Speed will also, of course, increase your punching power, right? So it will give you a slight more maxing on the power maxing as well, right? That should be a given. But explosive training, like you add the resistance bands, I think that's also really good. Now, when you come into fight specific speed, right? Especially with MMA, which is like a vast sport, it's very important to have hand speed, right? Jab speed, cross speed, hook speed, right? And with with your grappling entry speed, so like being able to shoot fast enough, right? Um, and also countering speed, being able to counter someone fast enough, right? Conor McGregor, again, very good at this, but I believe that more of his technique. But again, like I said, you should already have good technique, right? And counter, like the way he would just dodge, counter left on the money each time. Each time he would do this, and it was a work of art, honestly. It was like a work of art, honestly. And that's what you got to do basically. I would recommend honestly with speed. I think pad work actually personally helps. And again, I know I've mentioned this in previous videos. Where pad work isn't necessary, and yes, it's true to an extent, right? But at the same time, I do think if you are going to do it, and your goal is speed maxing specifically, right? I would recommend getting fast at evading first, like bobbing and weaving and dodging. I think that would be a little better in the beginning before you get offensively fast, if that makes sense. After that, after you get good at like being able to evade shots, right? Then you add in counter shots. So like like the I think I mentioned, right? You evade a shot, right? And you throw your punch. You evade a shot, throw your punch, right? Right on the dot, right? Because this will honestly, whenever I did this personally, I would be able to counter people instantly whenever I sparred. Like as soon as they threw a shot, right there, right there, right there. It's like your body just reacts, right? Neural firing right there, like muscle memory right there, right? On top of that, I think with speed, with grappling specifically, scrambling, right? Scrambling speed also like try it and like you know again if you have a partner to do this because you do need a partner, right? You guys can play like these types of games like who can touch someone's foot faster, right? Again, this is actually a game we play a lot in the grappling class that I go to, right? Who can touch the knees the fastest, right? Who can touch, right? It's basically to emulate. Like, this is actually a defensive drill better than it is an offensive drill, I would say. It can be a little bit of an offensive drill, but it's basically training you to defend shots better. Right? Well, as soon as someone touches your knee, you're sprawled immediately, right? Or you're defending yourself immediately, right? And I would say, with takedowns specifically, right? Because again, a lot of grappling is controlled, so it's not necessarily speed per se. But if you can get the takedown fast enough, I do think the takedown is probably one of the few moves where being, explosive, like power maxing and speed max is actually very beneficial, right? Unlike, you can't per se speed max side control, right? Per se. Right? I mean, I guess you could probably like speed max submission, like going from armbar to armbar. That again, you could drill that. That actually would help you, right? Because again, as much as again, nothing wrong with ecological training, right? And I would say we probably do a big chunk of that. At the same time, however, at the same time, however, ecological training, like, there are studies that show that when you drill, it builds neuroelasticity in your brain. So again, if they want to pretend and ignore that this doesn't happen, be my guest, I guess, But drilling will help you, right? Especially when you drill certain moves, right? And you get fast enough to where it's just muscle memory, right? Especially like being able to switch armbar hands instantly, right? From the left side, right side, left side, right side, right? When you can do that, I think it will help a lot. And on top of that, clinch reactivity, right? So specifically, I mean, this could be with grappling and, with how Muay Thai they do it, right? Being able to defend from the clinch and attack from the clinch, right? Because a lot of it, especially with the really good thighs, they're able to like, as soon as someone throws a knee, they're able to just trip them, right? As soon as someone tries to do any attack, you trip them, right? Right? As soon as someone tries to do anything, they attack them, right? So like, you can look at any thigh, like anyone that's really good at like, the clinch, you will like literally notice this, right? Right? They're like, it's just instinct, right? And you can train that, right? Most of this is, of course, going to be training, right? So, gotta get good at that, right? And, like I mentioned with footwork, I don't personally, I'm not a believer that you need to be able to move fast with footwork, per se, but it does help, sometimes to be fast, if that makes sense, right? Right? Especially when you're trying to invade someone's space, really, like, full force. Forward acceleration will help with that, right? So again, you could practice that, right? I do recommend practicing that. But again, a lot of footwork is just basic stuff, right? Now you may be asking, what can I do to increase my speed? Is there any type of training? That's a good question. What I would actually recommend, sprinting in short bursts, right? And I mentioned in my previous video, it's cardio maxing, short bursts, right? That you want to do this specifically without shoes on, ideally, and barefoot grounding, right? In a clean grass area, right? You don't want to do sprints and stuff and running on concrete because that will mess up your joints, right? That will just mess up your joints, right? Sprinting will help you, right? So do that, right? Sprinting actually, funny enough, I believe it's either 400 or 700% that increases your testosterone, right? So sprinting will help you a lot, right? On top of that, you could do explosive plyo push-ups, right? That will also help as well. Medicine ball chest throws, right? I remember in boxing, yeah, we used to do this, and we used to do medicine ball rotational shots, especially when I used to train at this boxing gym, right? Where they basically had Eastern European conditioning and American technique, right? Because funny enough, the the gym was owned by it was mostly Polish people there actually, and Eastern Europeans, right? That's what they would do a big chunk of it, right? Medicine ball rotational shots, right? That's what they would do in medicine ball chest throws, right? And on top of that, light temp, and you could do shadow boxing rounds, right? But make these shadow boxing rounds fast. It's focus on speed, And of course, hopefully your technique's already good enough for you to do this, right? If you're like new to this, get your technique good first, and then focus on speed, right? Don't butcher yourself, beforehand. Well, if your technique is good, fast shadowboxing rounds, right? The whole emphasis is just speed, speed, speed. Throw kicks, throw knees, throws like anything and everything with full speed. That's the focus here, right? And on the bag, right? If you have a punching bag or at the gym, you do light bag work with pure speed, right? Pure speed, right? It's not really about like landing power shots or whatever and like landing like crazy shots, right? Light bag work with pure speed, right? Again, just like with the fast shadowboxing round, the emphasis is speed, not power per se. And on top of that, I think you could do shadow wrestling, which I think, again, the emphasis would be speed. So you would do explosive takedowns based on speed, right? The speed, right? Like if you've ever seen um, wrestlers do shadow wrestling, you know what I'm talking about, right? And explosive sprawls, right? If you're a grappling dummy, and of course, like you're basically visualizing before the grappling dummy, you're visualizing yourself, exploding into shots and doing explosive sprawls, defending from shots, right? So, right, just visualize yourself, right, and just watch any video that's out there of like shadow wrestling, right? They do this, right? And if you're grappling them, honestly, just right, or if you have someone that you would just do this, like just practice techniques, see if you can get them fast enough, right? Why not, right? Especially submission techniques, especially I feel like the arm bar is like really good at this. Those guys that have really good fast arm bars, where they can switch from one hand to the other, I think that's a really good skill to have, honestly. And your speed, most of it, pretty much comes from your lower body. Right? If we're being honest here, right? Especially with striking and even with grappling, it's kind of footwork, but not in the traditional sense, where people think it's you're like moving in a certain way, like, per se, right? But you do want to get rid of um, these entries and stuff like that, and I think for striking specifically, when it comes to speed rules, right, you could do double jab speed rounds, right, triple jab speed rounds, right, jab defense rounds as well with pad if you pad guy if you can. Um, you do 20-second burst rounds, right? Um, right, catch and return pad drills, right? You could do a lot of I'm trying to think reaction pads. Right. So like your coach or pad work guy can like feign something and you quickly counter, right? Hand fighting into fast entries, right? And personally I'm actually of the belief that the back fist is better than the jab when it comes to speed, right? So why Bruce Lee actually would throw the back fist. And even Muhammad Ali, when he threw his jab, it was actually more of a back fist, if we're being honest. Or like the way he would throw it. That's why it was so fast. And it came from a very weird angle. Right. So again, right? Your jab will more than likely be the faster shot since it is a front, right? And your lead leg attacks as well, right? So lead leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, front teep or front step kick, right? These types of attacks. Generally, right, whatever foot is forward that you have, I recommend doing both. But yeah, I mean, having your lead side is more than likely going to be your speeder, the faster side, right? On top of that, I think I won't mention too much about diet per se in this, right? Because I already have a video on this like diet maxing for me. I recommend you checking that out. Like neurological speed, obviously, it's very important. Like a faster nervous system means that you'll be a faster fighter, right? And if you train fresh, right? I would recommend when you're training speed specifically, train like when you're a bit more fresh, rather than training speed when you're tired, right? Like super exhausted, basically, right? don't be super exhausted and then try this. Like it's not gonna be that efficient and like right. It's not gonna be that effective, right? And there's a lot of things that can help you with this, like with food specifically, like lion's mane mushroom, right? Because it helps with faster neurotransmission. She legit helps with um. It'll give you some minerals plus electrical conduction, right? Which again will help you with your speed and of course sleep, right? Watch my sleep maxing video, right? Because long sleep will give you a faster reaction time, right? If you have good sleep, and some other foods like raw honey, right? Raw honey will give you instant neurological fuel, right? Eggs, right? Because they have choline, and choline will give you faster neural firing. If you get wild caught salmon, for example, right? It has omega 3s, which will help with your brain speed. Blueberries, right, will actually have something called the brain antioxidants, right? Again, that will help with your neurological speed. Watermelon, great. Watermelon has something called citrulline, right? Citrulline is really good for fast blood flow, right? And lo and behold, liver, right? It's up to you how you want to make the liver, raw liver, or you can cook it, right? But it has these certain B vitamins for energy pathways, right? Which again help with your speed. But again, I won't go too in depth with food because I've already had a video on this, right? With Diet Maxi. I recommend you check it out. Right, I'll just mention like a couple more, right? But I think cordyceps actually, cordyceps mushrooms, right? You can get the powder for that. It helps with explosive energy, right? Helps, right? Again, a lot of athletes have been using these, especially lion's mane and cordyceps, right? Both of these help with neurological speed, right? And give you explosive energy, right? Beetroots, right? Will give you faster blood flow, right? Beetroots, right? They also help with cardio too, like I mentioned in the cardio max video. Bovine colostrum or any type of colostrum, goat colostrum, right? Will help you recover faster and it'll help you with having faster cycles, right? Which again will give you speed, right? But again, like I said, I'm not going to go too in depth with food because again, a clean diet will just equal faster processing, right? Right. And the faster you're able to process these foods into your body, the faster you will be. Right. It's not rocket science, right? But watch my diet maxing video if you want more details on that, right? So with speed, what's very important is having good recovery. And I do mention sleep in my sleep maxing video and in my recovery maxing video how you can maximize on these. Because if you sleep well, your reaction time and your timing will be really on point, right? Overtraining, unfortunately, does slow down the CNS, right? Central nervous system, right? And if you recover faster, like basically having little to no inflammation makes you faster, right? A clean diet, like I said, will make you faster as well, right? Now, these are some things that can, basically destroy your speed. Too much muscle tension, right? Like if you're forcing shots, right? And, again, you're flexing too much. Again, this is more of an indication that your technique is poor and fix your technique, right? And overtraining can kill your speed as well, right? Try not to, try to recover, right? Right? Because GSP does have this quote. I do kind of agree with it. There's no such thing as overtraining, just under recovering. Make sure you're recovering properly, right? If your footwork is like, you're just like, your feet are just, you basically look like that you have Asperger's when you're moving. Fix your footwork. Keep it simple, right? Don't do this shit, right? Right? Make sure your footwork is at least a decent level, right? And if you guys want to know more about footwork, I highly recommend joining my Patreon, right? That's where I will discuss more of these things, right? And you can join my biohacking for MMA program, which again I will discuss these type of things more in there, right? But again, weightlifting isn't bad. But I do think you should dedicate some of it to explosiveness, like especially if your goal is speed maxing, right? If it's muscle maxing, that's a little different. But if it's speed maxing, then add some explosivity to it, right? And you know, yeah, believe it or not, seed oils will actually make you slower, right? Because it gives your brain inflammation, right? And slows down your neurological fire, right? Poor sleep, right? So sleep, right? I've mentioned this before. If you don't sleep, it will give you yeah, it'll basically give you poor, like, how do I say this? It will basically give you poor speed, poor neurological firing, right? Which will give you really slow speed. And yeah, I mean that's most of what it is. Just try, basically just don't have any bad habits, right? Don't have any bad habits, and your speed won't be diminished by them, right? So summarize everything, right? Relax to move fast, right? Train fresh, improve, your technique every day and your speed every day. Build explosive strength, drill combinations at high speed, master timing, and increase your central nervous system power, right? Naturally over time and your speed. And this will actually help you with your speed as well, right? But if you guys really like that video, I think again, if you have any other questions, right, comment them below, right? Right, you can join my Patreon, right, which is where I have even more detailed stuff, right? Yeah, that's where I have more, and you can join the BioHacking for MMA program, right, as well, right? You can pre-order right now. It's in the link below, right, or in the link in my bio as well, right? It's the same exact thing, right? But yeah, I mean, speed is important, right? But it's not the end all be all, like I said, right? But if you guys already haven't, you know, like and subscribe to my channel, right? And until greatness returns, I shall leave you in the echoes of excellence.